Hey, good afternoon. It's about 20 to 2, I think now, and I'm running out of gas, but this is my third video for my 5743 Gifted and Talented group, and we'll get through this we'll figure this piece out together. This is, first of all, this is the third of three videos I will put up today. They will all be put up together up on Canvas, and as well as you'll have a document that speaks to the first video, which is about the assignment, the final assignment due at the end of the semester, with all the directions for that. And I've already spoken about that into the other video, so I'm not going to belabor that one. The second video was chapter 8 in the Collective Mindset book. And basically there was supplement what that chapter talks about. And so you have to continue to get the background pieces that you need to take from that. And that's leading on towards chapter 9, when the chapter 9 chapter, which I've emphasized more than once, will be this, and I'll go over that next week, but it will also be the stuff of the October 30th assignment, where I'm asking you really basically to dissect the book by way of using chapter 9 to do that. So you can see all these things are coming together. This particular chapter video, I'll try to keep brief. As I've said before, the PowerPoint I'm using, if I had given you the whole PowerPoint, it would have been about 3 hours long. So I'm just taking it in chunks. I'm skipping over some things I don't think you either would be interested in, or may not be so relevant to your needs as preparing yourselves as change agents for ENL programs. So everything I do with this particular PowerPoint, and it's one of the reasons why I'm not posting it. I think we can just do it in pieces like this, and I think you'll probably get more out of it. But that means you have to watch the video, he shouted. So if you're hearing his voice now, you are watching the video. And sooner or later, you probably should watch the video, because actually I'm going to make the discussion question based on this video, although I don't know what the discussion question will be until I get to where I think I want to be with this. And here we go. So I'm going to just pick this up. I won't belabor it, just maybe 15 to 20 minutes, because your mind and my body can only take so much energy at one time. And here it is. I deliberately starting with slide 1, because I keep going back to this and keep my wife's word is scutch, is scutching you, scratching you to see whether you've really given some time to this. Maybe that'll be the discussion question. I'm not sure. Let me write that down. I might do that, but I'm not sure yet. So the question then becomes, as I begin with everything else here, is how do you view the future? And those are the metaphors that I gave you. And then more importantly was when I asked you, do you think that, and you should have watched this video by now, the Emerging Future video. Basically what I wanted to know is where you think your department is, or where your school is. How do they view the future? I said this in the last week, I'm pretty sure. Here it comes again. Is my experience, and as I said, it's considerable, is that most teachers are pretty passive about the future on a personal level. Kind of surprised me a little bit, but I guess I felt the same way until I really got involved in these issues, where they're often very passive about how they should look at how things are, or maybe they've just been beaten up so much, and I'm not trying to be a wise guy, by the cities, by the systems, because some of you have spoken about that pretty eloquently, that you've just kind of psychically given up, and you just say, okay, tell me what to do and I'll do it. And how sad is that? How sad is that for you? How sad is that for the children whom you're being paid to teach? That's the saddest part about that. How tragic, how immoral is it? That even leaders can't overcome their own biases and inadequacies and incompetencies to recognize that as I just mentioned in the collaboration chapter and the collective mindset, how, yes, it's true that none of us are as smart as all of us if we're all stupid together. But when we make them all of us future together, we're in good shape, because that presumes other things have happened. And so if you walk into your faculty room and ask these people these questions, if they didn't throw their egg salad sandwiches at you before you were finished, they might say, I really do think that it's a Space Mountain roller coaster, and I'm just taking where I got it, in the dark where I'm going, and whether I like it or not. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the general feeling that many of you will have, you'll encounter. And if that's the case, then how do you create change? Unless you give them new experiences, new ways to think, to transform them. And that's what this whole video is about. And again, I am not going to read all of these things at you again. You've heard them before. But it is kind of true, isn't it? That, yes, we have met the future, emerging future, and it is us. Ain't nobody else. I mean, look what's going on in the Mideast. That's nobody's preferable future. I'm not so sure if that's necessarily true. It depends how you view it. But that dissatisfaction, that venom, that hatred that has persisted for centuries is a consequence of how people view who they are and what they are not, or what they are not and who they can be or should be. And that's really what we're talking about, this emerging future piece. We talked about what futures-based change leadership is. This diagram, I think, should be changed, actually. But basically, I'm saying here that futuring is made up of collaboration, which I just spoke about in the collective mindset book video, systems thinking, which I've spoken about ad nauseum earlier in the semester, and creative thinking, which we talked about last week. It's leaving out the premise of culture, though, and of futuring itself, which is in the center. That will be the axle around which this wheel turns. If people not only know how to future, but also know how to convert what they've learned from future to what they really think should be. And again, I don't want you to think you're going to change the whole of everything all the time. That's not what I'm implying. What I'm saying is you can create conditions and mindsets. That word is getting on my nerves too, but it's the first thing I can think of. It's our own book. You can create attitudes, dispositions, you can create skill sets where we, in fact, can take charge not only of our own futures, but of the children whom we're charged with educating, provided we know what we want and know what we think is happening. And again, the key word now, and I should mention this harder than I emphasize it for the rest of the semester, more than I probably have. There's something about change. You can change something. This is a terrible example. Here it comes. I really hate the example I'm thinking of. I've been on many a diet. Most diets I've flunked that in 2 days. Occasionally, over the course of my diet history, there are times when I can lose 20 to 30 pounds and be pretty happy with myself because I had chosen to change my future, my health future. But I haven't sustained it. His beliefs deep within my bald little head, or other issues that maybe, or maybe it's my upbringing, I'm not sure what it is, that have me drop back and put the weight back on. So I'm not sustaining the change. So you can put in the most magical holy grail change that all kids will be reading 3 levels above grade level in every way, and everyone will be going to Harvard. But if you can't keep that going, then it's not, if it's not sustainable, in the end, it's a failure. So we need to think about these futuring practices. I said that there were 3. I'm going to teach you 1 today, 2, quickly. And you're going to use these practices in one of 2 ways, I think. You're going to use them in your needs assessment, which you're going to create for the final assignment you're going to construct, and you're going to use these strategies to scrape off down to root causes. You can't recreate the future if you don't know what the root cause is that's about. I was pretty sick a couple of weeks ago, and I'm better now, but I'm starting to see some of the same symptoms coming back, and I'm getting nervous about whether did the medicine work. Well, maybe the medicine worked enough to suppress it then, but was it strong enough to suppress it for the long haul? That's what the example is I'm talking about. So we're going to say there's three kinds of futuring skills: 1, 2, and 3. High, and here they are. We already talked about learning organization. Talked about all these premises. Now I'm taking you to a whole different place. I know I said this more than once, so here it comes again. When it comes to the future, there are three kinds of people: those who let it happen, those who make it happen. That's where I'm trying to drag you, and those who wonder what happened. Now, I think I did this with you early in the semester, but here's a reminder. We're talking about decision making and actions based on decision making. And if you follow my cursor here, you can see that this model of decision making, which is not a great model, but it's simple enough for us to have a conversation with. And I'm going to suggest strongly that you'll never think about deciding anything anymore. It's the same way once you recognize how this works. When something comes up, an occasion comes up that has obviously facts and information associated with it, and suggests a goal or goals, which suggest different choices, which leads to your beginning to if-then, to future. Consider these choices from a Rubik's Cube point of view. When you twist one side, the other side's affected. Twist the other side, the other side's affected. How do you get your arms around that to make all those sides uniform? So they're going to lead to choices, but the choices actually are impacted by this side of the equation, and that would be your values and your feelings. So is it really important for you to get all of the Rubik's Cube sides aligned properly? If it is, then you're going to figure it out. If it's something you just want to fool around with and you don't really worry about it, that's something else altogether. If you want to solve the problem of the Mideast because you hate hatred and you're tired of violence and you want everyone to feel equal, if those are your values, then what are your choices? And how do I know those choices? How do I project that those choices might be effective? That's the problem really over there, I suppose. So that simple decision-making model takes us to a premise that I have to just make sure I affirm that an organization. Now think about whether your school does this or not. And this is the question. All right, that would be slide 58. So you need to look for this slide actually in the video as such. So an organization with and without futuring. So if the school you're in practices futuring, and I'm going to tell you most of them don't, he said smugly, then the systems thinking, if it does exist there, the systems thinking is recognized and affirmed and practiced. The creativity is encouraged to enable us to continue to meet the mission. People know how to empower each other through collaboration, and they can lead from their emerging future to their preferable. If futuring is haphazard or does not exist, more often than not, that's what you run into, because it's hard and because you're too busy chasing kids who threw a pastry across the floor. then your systems thinking, your shared vision is vague. You can't really stop the way you do things because you haven't got time to think of new things to do. You don't have the effectiveness to cooperate with each other. And you react, he shouted, instead of proact, as the issue we're talking about here. So now we're talking about there are three basic ways to do this, and I'm not going to give you all of these at once because they can get pretty complicated. And we're just going to do type 1. Type 1 is what the title says, and that is what do we know, what do we not know, what do we not know that we don't know. And really what good futurists will do is they'll chart, and I'm using that verb loosely, all the forces that they think that are out there, so we can recognize the larger world out there. And I'll keep going back to the Mideast. I don't know where I am today. So a decision that might sound like a good decision for all of those who have suffered and are suffering in this Mideast crisis that could easily become worse, isn't nearly as simple as we have to think about. We need to think about what China's thinking about. We need to think about what the Arab nations think about, what Europe is thinking about, what trade is about. I'm just saying what the trade issues are, the oil issues that are out there. And we need to figure out how all those things impact each other, support a point of view or defeat it. And so a good futurist get as much information as they can. An example, I guess most of you were alive, but you probably don't remember very well. I'm sure you don't remember very well. After 9/11, President Bush decided we were going to invade Iraq and take out their weapons of mass destruction. And most people were in favor of it in the United States. We were opposed to terrorism. We saw Iraq as the center of that. We saw Iraq as a threat to our security. So we invaded Iraq. Not everybody was in favor of it, but most people were. And so we invaded Iraq to get these so-called weapons of mass destruction out of, to find them and get rid of them. And guess what? There weren't any. They didn't find any. Now they later on argued, well, we got rid of Hussein. That was really what we wanted to do. Okay, I'll even grant you that. But the information we had was not enough. We didn't know what we didn't know. Okay, that leads to faulty futuring and to needless deaths, American deaths, if you think about it. So what would you do in terms of your needs assessment to make sure you got all the information you need to help your staff understand what the kind of changes are needed? What would you need, he shouted. What kind of data? What kind of opinions? That's the question. That's what information gathering is and futuring is in terms of this level. And now there's ways to do that. Here are some ways you can do it. Now, I'm going to jump down to these two bottom ones, and I'm going to spend more time on this next week. You can get study groups together. So if you were a chairperson, we get a study group, 2 people. We go study where the nicest lab scores seem to differ radically from one grade to the next, and they're making that one up. Okay, so you can do. In fact, I know I have to do those 2 yellow ones there for your assignment. Now that I think about it, so you can get a study group together so that they can report back to the group down the line. You can get focus groups together. It's a little different. You can bring people in and ask their opinions about what they think is going on in terms of the learning, how well our babies are learning. You can bring in experts. I hate to call myself an expert. I'm not an expert in ENL, but I am. I know my way around change theory pretty well. So if you brought me in to talk about what change theory may be necessary, I could talk about that for you. If you need to bring in some I don't know if you know the person I'm thinking of, Andrea Honigsfeld out of Malloy College, who was a walking encyclopedia about all strategies. That's connected to, you should look her up if you're looking for some good books. Andrea Honigsfeld, Honigsfled, I think. She's unbelievable, this lady. She's all over the world talking about different strategies to use in working with E&L students all over the world. So if you want to bring an expert in and see what she thinks about, maybe she does an audit of your instructional practice and says, you know what you folks are doing are from the year of the flood. Here are some new things to look at. You could do a panel discussion. You could take a field trip to a university or to a school system that's been known for its effectiveness. Okay, and you look at trend data. Now, trend data is what it sounds like. Trend data, I'm going to talk more about in a second. Here's an example of trend data. Dangerous to look at in certain senses. Now, really to see which way the direction of your data is heading indicates where it's going to continue to go. And that isn't necessarily true. Okay, sometimes trends reverse. Now, the smart futurist thinks about how things could reverse rather than how they may continue. But those are all, to go back to the slide, that slide. I don't know how many bullets are there, but and we're going to talk more about the ones in yellow more carefully next week. So these are all I'm going to stop right here. These are all the beginning of what we call type 1 futuring approaches. By the end of next week, you'll have learned some type 1 futuring processes. Things that you're not used to or that you have very little experience with. And that's where we'll stop today. So I've given you just continuing your way through, and I'm up to slide 74. And the discussion question will be, I already forgot what it is. Go back to 58. Or the extent to which you think your school practice is futuring. We'll go from there. Okay. Enough said. Dr. B's out of gas, and he's going back to bed. But right now, I think we've done a nice job. Bear in mind, there are 3 videos to watch here today. Don't have to watch them all at once, but make sure that you watch them pretty quickly. Have a great week.